we expect that the court will dismiss these charges.
Defense attorney Nick Robinson represents 4 people charged with murder who were indicted through a one-man grand jury in Genesee County. But the Michigan Supreme Court just issued an opinion saying one-man grand juries do not have the power to issue indictments. So he's filed to have his client's murder charges dropped.
Chances are a number of these cases will have to be dismissed and not refiled.
Genesee County Prosecutor David Layton tells me his office is preparing to reissue charges in these 38 cases, which involve between 75 and 80 suspects who were all indicted through a one-man grand jury, if and when defense attorneys request a dismissal.
Charged with crimes of violence, albeit murder, manslaughter, great bodily harm.
Layton tells me a large burden sits on those who are willing to take the stand.
So many witnesses to those cases, people who have information, victims, etc., are reluctant to come forward because they fear repercussions.
That's the very reason Layton has relied on the one-man grand jury system, where witnesses only have to share their accounts with one judge.
Ask them whether they're willing to come forward. That's going to be a big undertaking.
If you know something about a murder and you don't come forward, you're just as guilty as the party.
Dave Hurley's 3-year-old grandson, Messiah Williams, was murdered on October 22nd of 2020 when bullets were fired into his Flint home. 3 men have been charged through a one-man grand jury in Messiah's death.
And there's a lot of people out there that know about Messiah's death and know what happened and haven't come forward.
These one-man grand jury cases bypass a standard procedure in the criminal justice system, a preliminary examination, which would have allowed defense attorneys like Robinson a chance to talk with witnesses.
To be able to test their recollection, to be able to test their memory, and be able to question them under oath.
Despite requesting a judge to drop the charges for his 4 clients who were charged with murder, Robinson doesn't expect that to be how these cases end.
It is not necessarily a situation to where once the judge grants the dismissal, that those individuals will just walk right out of the jail.
Nobody's going to be released on the spot unless we make the determination that there's just no way we can prove the case in court, and that would be because witnesses are fearful of coming forward.
Now, in Robinson's 4 cases, he tells me the court has 10 days to give his clients a hearing on their request for their murder charges to be dismissed. Layton says his office is preparing to be ready to recharge before hearings like that happen in any of these cases. And one important thing to mention, all of this, it stems from the Flint water crisis investigation. 9 people were charged with crimes through a one-man grand jury, including former state health director Nick Lyon. And Lyon's attorney challenged that one-man grand jury system being able to issue charges, and the Michigan Supreme Court agreed a one-man jury cannot issue charges.
The court basically said today that the administrative law that's been made by the groups like the EPA, that the EPA does not have that authority under the Constitution to make law. The ability or the role of the EPA is to enforce law. And what the court said today is that Congress must make the laws that regulate the economy.
Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel released a statement on the ruling. She said in part, quote, "This ruling dangerously undermines the EPA's essential efforts to curb climate change, and I am dismayed to see an outcome that will no doubt wash away reasonable regulations meant to protect the environment."
This morning, after a marathon session, nearly 18 hours, Governor Gretchen Whitmer and her team, along with Michigan lawmakers at the Capitol, have reached a deal on next year's state budget. They burned the midnight oil literally to get this work done. House Republicans call it the largest budget in state history. Mid-Michigan Now political reporter Rachel Louise Just has been tracking the budget talks from beginning to end, in fact, and she breaks down what everyone has agreed to.
When Michigan's legislative budget day started, it was June. By the time it ended, it was July. At 2:45 a.m., the Michigan Legislature's board lit up green, approving Michigan's 2023 budget with overwhelming bipartisan support.
I think it's something that we can be proud of. in support of our Michigan residents.
This is a great example of consensus and bipartisanship and coming together.
Both Republicans, Democrats, and Governor Gretchen Whitmer hailing the agreement as a victory. For some of these lawmakers, it will be their last budget as they're termed out of office.
Setting our budget and setting our revenues in a path that puts Michigan in the right path to continue to provide the services Michigan families expect.
The budget is a record $76 billion more funding than Michigan has ever seen, according to House Republicans. That includes $18.6 billion for schools. Both the legislature and the governor's office report the plan won't raise taxes.
School aid budget, I mean, when you're looking at $450 increase in per pupil spending, I think that was huge.
Lawmakers gaveled into a conference committee late Thursday night and early Friday morning, unanimously approving the budgets.
I'm most proud of the $2.6 billion of debt reduction. I'm not aware of any state in the history of the United States making this level of commitment to reducing liabilities.
As we dive into the budget, we'll bring you more details on how this money will be split across the state. In Lansing, Rachel Louise Just.
Well, the deal leaves $7 billion on the table for investment in other projects. Both Republicans and the governor have floated respective tax cut plans over the last few months. We'll see where that goes. Governor saying on Twitter this morning, the bipartisan state budget does not raise taxes, and she is ready to keep collaborating so they can offer more immediate relief to families as they deal with rising gas and grocery prices along with other everyday expenses. Meanwhile, Senate Minority Leader Jim Ananich says he secured more than $10 million in the budget for a dozen or so community-based programs here in the Genesee County area. Now, the money will go toward community outreach, youth education programs, and reducing gun violence. Some specifics on the breakdown: $3 million for the Genesee County Sheriff's Office for equipment, personnel, and training focused on reducing shootings and homicides. $2.5 million to redevelop a former GM building into an inpatient behavioral health facility. $1.5 million to Hamilton Community Health Network. $1 million to Educare Flint. Burston Fieldhouse, Ennis Center, Flint Children's Museum, St. Mark Community Outreach Center, and Sylvester Broom Empowerment Village each get $500,000. Boys and Girls Club, Crossover Outreach, and Ignite get $250,000, and Martis Luna Food Pantry is receiving $150,000. He not only apparently got more than $10 million, he got more than $13 million for this area.